Wanted to see how settlers damaged their history.
The evil settlers.
The lady brings her proof and I love it.
This building in back of us is a mosque. They built it on top of two churches, and they actually destroyed the churches and they built the mosque on top.
How the fact that there's no such thing as Palestinians, they weren't here so many years ago. I'm originally from San Francisco.
How does it make you feel to get labeled by the outside world as a settler or an extremist?
The reason why Jews have to exist in the West Bank
Is because of this exact strategic point you can see here.
Shalom Chaverim, and welcome to the West Bank. Welcome to Udan Shamron, or the occupied Palestinian territories, whatever you want to call it.
I don't really care. That is a Bedouin village which I didn't know existed here in the West Bank, in Judea and Samaria. We are today touring with an undesignated tour group. I got connected from a bunch of other Jews through the West Bank. This is the Palestinian village of Bukhmas. A lot of very interesting things we're going to be learning about today in relation to this region and the current war between Israel and Palestine. Let's begin.
These are the rolling hills known as the Judean Hills of the West Bank. Judea and Samaria is an unbelievable place, and I began my adventure today outside of the community of Shiloh. You might know it as a Jewish settlement, but it is in fact the ancient community of Shiloh. This community was reestablished after the creation of the State of Israel and currently houses the red heifers, known as the biblical sacrificial red heifers of the apocalypse. I met up with an awesome lady there named Moria, who toured me around the red heifer site. I just dropped a video about the red heifers the other day, so please make sure you go watch that before you watch this video. But after we finished our conversation about the red heifers, we went on to tour Shiloh, the place where Moria actually grew up. Her parents were the pioneers of reestablishing this community, and she has an absolutely incredible story.
So one time I guided here a group of Palestinian tour guides. They came here with left wings, and they wanted to see how settlers damaged their history.
The evil settlers.
Evil settlers. And I greeted them nicely like I do to everyone. And I took them around here and I showed them their history here that's standing on our history, that you can really see it right back of us. I showed them like our roots here in this land and the findings that we found from our forefathers here. At the end of the tour, one of the tour guides, the Palestinians one, he said, I know this is a sensitive subject and I shouldn't be saying this, but after this tour, I understand the meaning of this area and the connection of this area with the Jewish people.
Well, you know, the dominant belief of Palestinians in here, Ramallah, Nablus, is that Jews are tricky, and we take archaeological finds, we dig, we put it there, and then we pretend to, oh, it's real.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they believe this.
No way.
Yep.
I can't believe that they believe that.
They believe this.
So my parents came here in 1978. They came with 8 families. They had a dream to find ancient Shiloh because we read about it in the Bible, and they knew it's supposed to be here somewhere in the hills. And many signs brought them to this area. When they came here, this is what they saw. It was just like empty. This is the building that we're looking at now. And they were here middle of nowhere. Here's a picture of my mother holding me when I was 1 year old. We were here.
It's adorable.
Middle of nowhere.
She looks a lot like you.
She does?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a compliment.
Yeah.
Here, middle of nowhere, no electricity, no water, no roads. So they brought us water like in a tank once a week, and we had to recycle every little drop. It was hard conditions, but they were very happy because they felt that 2,000 years we were waiting for this moment. 2,000 years the people of Israel are praying and dreaming to come back to our forefathers' land. And we have the privilege to be in such an important place, in the place where the Mishkan has been. So slowly, Shiloh got developed. Today it's a big place. And archaeologists came here to dig the place and to see if we could actually find proofs that this is a site. And what happened is that through my childhood, we found amazing findings that prove 100% that this is actually Shiloh. And one of them we're looking at now. Look here through history. Because many places in Israel, a place that was holy for the people of Israel, also the Christians and also the Muslims, saw it as a holy place. So this building in back of us is a mosque, 1,000 years old. They built it on top of 2 churches. You see here, there's one older one and one newer one.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually destroyed the churches and they built the mosque on top. And over there, in one of the walls of the church, we found a Jewish altar, 3,000 years old. We found it's a 4-horn altar. And it was used as part of the wall of the church as a secondary use. You could really see clear history, but actually the most important thing that we found here, right over here in the mosaic, we could see it from the other side, we found an inscription in Greek. And it says here, "May the Lord have mercy on the people of Shiloh." This is the word Shiloh. It's similar to English, a little easy to recognize. And this is a dream of every archaeologist, is to dig a place and find a sign, "Welcome, you're in the right place." The Christians came to live here right after we left the place. We went to exile, and they came here after us, so they knew it's Shiloh. So if we find an inscription from the Byzantine times saying Shiloh, this is a proof that it's like 100% we're in the right place. This is what made the archaeologists know and understand that we're here.
Are there other proof that Jewish proof here?
Yeah, we're gonna go up and we're gonna see it in our eyes.
I have to take a moment because
Sure.
I've shown this in so many places around Israel, and archaeology that's the history that speaks for it. This is colonization. You can see how colonization acts. A construction on top of a construction on top of a construction. It's layers of erasing Jewish culture and Jewish history to build and develop another religion in place of it. It's a sad fact, but that's the history of the land of Israel. And everywhere you go where there's a Jewish site, there's almost always a Christian site on top of that that's been destroyed with a Muslim site on top of it. And that's just the reality is you can see it right here as clear as day. Muslim site, Christian site, Jewish site.
This hall is here. We see original findings from Shiloh. Every window is a different period. And for me, one of the most exciting things is to see here. These are jars from the time of the Mishkan, the tabernacle itself, 3,000 years old. And they were found when I was 4 in 1980. And my father woke me up and he said, "Moria, you have to come with me now to the ancient city." And I didn't understand why. And I said, it's the middle of the night. But he said, "No, you can't miss this moment." Took me out of bed and brought me here. And I see many people excited and they're all talking. And I asked him, "Abba, what's happening here?" So he said, they found the storage rooms of the tabernacle. And it was a very big moment. Now I understand the big moment. So this last day, they started to find these jars that we see here. And these jars, this is how they found them.
Wow.
They're huge jars, and archaeologists know from all the studies that these are jars that were used only by the Jewish people and only in the time of the judges, which is the time of the tabernacle. It's a very rare finding. Usually they find one or two. But what happened here in Shiloh, after finding one of them in that place, in this last day of the dig, they all came to dig the same area, and they found another one, and another one, and another one. They found more than 50 jars in 2 rooms, which is a finding that wasn't found anywhere in Israel. So all the archaeologists were excited, and they came here, and they said, "This is a proof that many people came here. This is a proof that it was something big here." These were probably the storage rooms of the tabernacle, where they used to put olive oil and wine for the use of the tabernacle. And we found a very special vessel that has 12 handles. We don't know what they did with this, but it's very reasonable that something related to the 12 tribes.
We then head off to Psagot, part of the Council of Binyamin in Judea and Samaria, and home to a pretty interesting dynamic via the settlers and the Palestinians that live here.
So, Eliana.
Yeah.
Maybe you could just introduce yourself to my audience real quick, who you are and what you
I'm
do.
Eliana. I'm originally from San Francisco, but I've lived in Israel for most of my life. And I live in the beautiful mountains of Binyamin, named for the tribal inheritance of Benjamin, because that's where we are right here, in the heart of the biblical heartland, Judea and Samaria. I'm married to David. We have 8 children, and we live in a town called Eli. And I'm the International Desk Director for the Binyamin Regional Council.
Now, we're going to be exploring a lot of this area today of Yehuda and Shomron, of Judea and Samaria. But I have one question that I want to ask you before we learn and talk. One very important question. How does it make you feel to get labeled by the outside world as a settler or an extremist, or even in some cases, some people consider settlers in the West Bank as terrorists? How does that make you feel when you hear those things?
It's very, very hurtful.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that people who label us have no clue about what's actually going on here. In the year 1967, we won a war of defense, a 19-year-old country. We were not interested in fighting anyone or grabbing any land. but part of the land we gained, and everyone who wants to live here peacefully is welcome. But I would like to say again, peacefully, which means do not murder. Every day there are attempts of Palestinians to try and infiltrate into our towns, to kill us as we're driving on the road. Just a month ago, very close friends of ours lost their son in a terror attack at the gas station, which is right beneath our town. It was the second terror attack where terrorists just came in, shot people in the head, and the world thinks that that's fine, and that's something that's very, very offensive to us. And I understand that there's no real understanding of the complex situation here. On one hand, it's complex. On the other hand, if we all choose to live here peacefully, and there's no more murder attempts against the Jews, we can live here peacefully. There's room for everyone. You can see there's a lot of open space.
There's
here.
a lot of space.
A lot
more space than people think, that's for
A
sure.
lot more space than people think. So come and learn and ask questions and really learn and listen to the answers before you make accusations.
Eliana went to tell us the story of the Michmas Valley, right next to Psagot. In between what is now an Israeli settlement and a Palestinian village, there is a biblical story, and one that can be quoted to its exact geographical location. And before we get into Eliana's biblical narrative of the story of this valley, she's going to be using the word Philistines, or Plishtim in Hebrew. There is a common belief that Palestinians, or the word Palestine, Palestine or Palestina, was derived originally from the Roman adaptation of the word Philistines. Philistines were known biblically as the arch nemesis, one of the biggest enemies of Am Yisrael, of the Hebrews or the Israelites. And so there is a known story that the Romans renamed the land of Judea into Syria Palestina to mock the Jewish people, as it was known that the Philistines were the arch enemy of the Jewish people. The story that Eliana will tell us is very interesting, but I needed to add this context just so you can understand from the perspective of a religious Jew the weight of the renaming of this land into Palestine, or even the concept of Palestinian nationality carries.
I said, no, the Plishtim were Yordeam, they were fishermen. They lived on the southern coast of Israel, and during the time of the Tanakh. And it's very, very important. Sometimes I just call the enemy because I have to get into this whole discussion about how the fact that there's no such thing as Palestinians, and they weren't here so many years ago. So we have the Plishtim. Now the Plishtim are right up here in this valley, in the Michmas Valley, and King Saul sitting with his 600 soldiers on the mountain looking down in the valley at the thousands and thousands of Plishtim. Now what do we understand from this pasuk? If we know that they're usually on the southern coastal plain and we're up in the mountains, what does it mean? It means that they have the chutzpah to come up here and they're not afraid of Bnei Israel. So here we have Shaul looking down at Michmas, and then we have Shaul's son Yonatan. Yonatan decides to do something crazy. Yonatan v'noseh kelav v'emru alu elenu. Okay, so what he decides to do with his one guy carrying his guns, they decide to rappel down a cliff. Now, what cliff am I talking about? This is called the Michmas Valley, and if you go hiking down here, at a certain point you see two cliffs, and they're mentioned in the Tanakh. One is called Sene, and the other is called Botzet. And he decides to rappel down the mountain. No iPhones, can't tell his dad what he's doing. And but he says there's going to be a sign. Now, how can one person, two people, win a battle against so many, against the enemy down here? He says if they're ready for us, it's a sign, and we'll climb back up. But if they're not, if they're relaxed, it's a sign from God that we can win this battle. So they start rappelling down. V'yal Yonatan el yadav al raglav v'noseh kelav acharav, and they're climbing down. And how do they react, the Plishtim? Hine ivrim yotzim min echorim. The Hebrews are coming out of their holes like they're like mice or like rats. Now, what holes are we referring to? When you hike down in this valley, there are lots of caves. There are karstic cracks here. There are natural caves. So you can imagine it. You can really hike down in the valley and imagine this happening. They climb out of the caves, and they understand that they're all relaxed. And what they do is these two men, they start killing 20 men. They kill 20 Plishtim, and there's a whole big balagan. And the Plishtim start fleeing with great confusion and commotion. Now, King Shaul is up on that mountain, looking down in the valley, does not have a clue what's happening, but he sees everybody fleeing. So he takes his handful of soldiers, and they come down into the valley, and they finish them off. And that is the famous battle of Shaul and Yonatan in the valley of Michmas. Now, what do we have here? We have an Arab village called Muchmas, preserving the ancient Hebrew biblical name. Another Arab village just beyond that mountain called Jabba. Geva Binyamin, which is the Bira, which is the capital of King Saul, King Shaul. And here we have this historic story that when you read it in the Tanakh, maybe you've read it before, maybe you remember from high school, and all of a sudden you understand it. But it's not the end of the story. World War I, the British are fighting the Turks. The British are camped out nearby, and the Turks are in the Michmas Valley. Now they're moving up north. They're trying to get the Turks out of Israel, trying to conquer Israel. And the night before the attack against the Turks right here in the Michmas Valley, the British commander says, Michmas, Jabba, this name reminds me of something. Bring me my Bible. At the light of the candle, the British commander opens his Bible, Samuel 1, chapters 13 and 14, and starts reading about Saul and Jonathan and Migron. He sends trackers, and they find the two cliffs, Sene and Botzets. They say, this is it. This is the exact same spot. He changes his battle plans. Instead of sending a huge battalion of soldiers, he sends one small platoon to surprise them at night. The Turks wake up. They're positive that they're surrounded by the entire army of General Allenby, and they start fleeing with great confusion and commotion. Thus, thousands of years later, the British win the Battle of Michmas using the battle tactics of Saul and Jonathan. I think it's a great story. And there were archaeologists that came from the United States that were digging, because that's supposedly the biblical eye right nearby. And they walked up to the archaeologists and said, how do we dig out this cave? And they said, look, you have to dig it out carefully, and you have to take all the soil that you find, and you have to sift it. And when they sifted the soil, they came upon this coin. This is a replica of the coin. On one side of the coin, there was an amphora, which is a vessel that holds wine. On the other side was a grape leaf. And it said, for the freedom of Zion. Second year, year 67, second year of the Great Revolt. The Great Revolt of the Jews against the Romans, 66 to 70. That's when the Beit HaMikdash from the Second Temple is destroyed. And to find a coin like this in a cave, right next to where they're living in their vineyard, from 2,000 years ago is super exciting. But what was even more exciting is when they cleared out the entire cave and they brought the archaeologists in, they discovered that the cave was actually an ancient winery, a winery that was owned by Jews 2,000 years ago. And it's about the story of Am Yisrael that we've returned to our home. And that's what the world is so upset about. They don't want us Jews in our home. That's what this whole war is about. It's all about us. Every single home in Gaza has maps of the entire state of Israel. The entire state of Israel. It's not a West Bank. It's not Judea and Samaria. It's not about occupation. It's about the heart of the biblical heartland, and this is where we are.
So we're outside of the ancient town of Shiloh.
This gas station is a Sonol gas station, which is also near this restaurant called Hummus Eliyahu.
Just about 2-3 weeks ago, there was a terror incident here where, if I remember correctly, one of the armed civilians inside of the gas station ended up neutralizing the terrorist. I'll show you guys some of the effects of what's left over from there right now.
Where was the bullet hole?
But the soldiers are here now.
Oh.
Now when the soldiers leave, that's different.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right there.
This looks like, is this a bullet hole? Because it looks like this could be also, I'm not sure.
Oh, that is.
That is, yeah.
For sure, yeah.
Wow. Crazy.
So now I'm on the outskirts of the ancient Israeli Jewish town of Shiloh. And I don't even want to disclose what the exact name of this community is, or settlement, however you'd want to phrase it. But you can see there in the distance the Palestinian town. I don't know if you'll be able to see it so much on the camera I'm using right now because it's so small, but right through the center of this valley on that hill over there, you can see the minaret from the mosque. And dotted around, it's pretty funny driving around here. There's some national roads that are able to be used by both Palestinians and Israelis with checkpoints here and there. And then usually the settlements or the Israeli communities or settlements are usually based right off of those national roads. And they're usually guarded, or they're always guarded with Israeli soldiers and encampments on the outside. But when you're looking around, just like you can scan the hills of the West Bank and you can just see, like, you'll be able to see Palestinian village, Israeli settlement, Palestinian village, Israeli settlement. The thing that to me is the most unique about this place is that it's hilarious that, like, we Jews, we live right next to the Palestinians here. I'm talking about this is a distance of like a mile,
or less. You can see Palestinian village, Jewish village, Palestinian village, Jewish village, and it's all over the West Bank like this. And we live in two different universes, and it's both amazing and insane at the same time. And the land, which there is a lot of, don't let anybody tell you that there's just a small amount of land. I mean, it's a small area, but there's still a lot of land to be developed and to live in. It can so easily be shared and lived side by side between Arabs and Jews. The Jewish communities here all have to be guarded and protected by soldiers. There has to be militarization in every single one of these Israeli communities or Jewish communities in the West Bank. For the Palestinian ones, there's none. You can just drive in and out whenever you want. There might be Palestinian Authority police officers, but there's no idea of an army there. There doesn't need to be, because for the most part, there's a huge fear of terrorism in these Israeli communities. And you could say it's not right. All these people are American colonizers, white colonizers from European countries. I'm very sorry. Shiloh has ancient history in it, and it's been a consistent Jewish settlement for as long as time could tell. It's been inhabited by Jewish people continuously for over 3,000 years. So the area that I'm in right now, if you dig underground, most likely you're going to be able to find Jewish artifacts. Not Palestinian ones, because they didn't exist. Palestinian people were not a people until relatively recently in history. So while this land could be so happily shared by both Israelis and Palestinians, Jews and Arabs, it's very rare to find a rational person who lives here would be willing to cohabitate this land. And it's something that we've learned as Jewish people since the October 7th war so clearly. We'll conclude this by coming up here to a beautiful point. I'm on top of a mountain here in the West Bank. You can see an Arab village right there. I'm in the settlement of Ariel right now, the illegal West Bank settlement of Ariel. And over the course over there on the other side, you can see Tel Aviv. I just want to make a quick point, and I know I've been throwing this in every video. The reason why Jews have to exist in the West Bank, the reason why Jews have to exist in Judea and Samaria, is because of this exact strategic point you can see here. These are indefensible areas. If you were an extremist Palestinian terrorist that wanted to fire rockets from this exact point towards Tel Aviv, you have a clear open side, a clear open site to do it, and you're above ground in defensible borders. And that's something that we Jews just cannot allow. I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you a long time. Goodbye, class.
If you believe in my content and you want to support me, just know your help is needed. You can donate to the channel via PayPal, buying me a coffee, joining my Patreon community, or becoming a member here on YouTube. Although they take the biggest cut. There's links in the description to all my videos that'll point you in the right direction. Your support is the only way that I can keep creating the content that you love to watch for me. Thank you.